So thank you very much, Maro. I'm Simon. I'm COO at a company called Mention Me. And if you've heard of Mention Me before or you've worked with us in the past, then what you will know is we're excellent at driving acquisition through referral. We're very proud to be able to say that over the last 10 years, we've driven over 6 million new customers to hundreds of our clients, generating over $2 billion worth of revenue for them, which is nice. That's all right, isn't it? It's not that exciting though, is it? And so what we've realised fairly recently is that what we've learnt by doing that is that there's a bigger, more exciting, more engaging, more interesting vision that we can help you pursue, and that is to make everybody, in the way they approach their business, think advocacy first. So what does that mean? That means thinking about driving your customers to a point where they love you so much, they love the product or the service or the brand experience so much that they're prepared to stake a bit of their personal credibility and reputation on advocating on your behalf to their friends. And over the next 10 minutes or so, you're going to learn why that's such a valuable way of looking at the world and how it can drive significant and sustainable business advantage. You're also going to learn how to do it and how we are helping our clients make this journey. And you're going to hear some concrete examples of people who've done this and things that they have done on that journey. Okay, ready? Let's go. Just to whet your appetite, if you start thinking about the world through advocacy first, a whole new picture emerges. This single dot on this screen represents one customer at one of our clients. And she is just one customer. She spent about £200, so she's fine from their perspective. But if we look at her through the perspective of advocacy, a different picture emerges. Every dot on this diagram represents an individual customer, and every link between those dots represents a referral made by one of those customers. And so what you can see is this enormous network worth over £400,000 worth of revenue, which started with this single customer right here. With your marketing hat head on, with your acquisition or retention head on, then you're going to look at this and start thinking, well, what have these people got in common? Like what community of interest have we tapped into here? What can we do more of for that? You can see some dots that seem to have made a lot of introductions. Who are they? What's going on? Are they micro-influencers? How can we tap into those kind of people? So that's the perspective I want you to start thinking about, like, who are these customers? We're not alone in thinking about advocacy as being a way to drive the business. Many of you will have heard of Fred Reichheld, and even if you haven't heard of him, you're almost certainly using the thing that he invented, which is the Net Promoter System. We've been working with Fred over a couple of years now because his vision of how business should work is very similar to ours. It is not an exaggeration to say that his life's work over the last 30 years is to get businesses to adopt a much more customer-centric and advocacy-driven view of the world and to create what he talks about as customer love. And more recently, he's demonstrated through his own stock portfolio, if you read his most recent book, that picking the winners in particular sectors by using NPS, the system that he created, outperforms the stock market when compared to their peers. So it's absolutely the rate for long-term value. And where he's synthesized his advice is the only way to sustainably and profitably grow a business is to get customers to come back for more and bring their friends. That is it. Breaking that down a little bit, there's really only 4 ways you can grow any business. You can get customers coming back for more because they like you and they like the product and they like the experience. You can get them to advocate on your behalf and bring their friends. Or you can do where all the money goes, you can pay for them. You can spend money with Meta, you can spend money with Google, you can seed loads of discounts into your CRM platforms, whatever it is. The focus needs to be here, because if you can do this well, then that is the thing that's going to drive sustainable growth. So Fred's come up with this concept of earned growth, which is a measure of how quickly the business would grow if you stopped spending on sales and marketing, just by the result of the work that you've generated to make your customers love you so much. And what it turns out to be the case is obviously this bit, customers coming back for more, is pretty easy to measure. Most of you will be doing that in some form or other, in some kind of lifetime value measure. But the customers telling their friends is the bit that no one's really measured properly before. And that's where we can really help. So we can actually generate an earned growth for each of our clients. And what we would encourage is that that's used as the North Star for the organisation in the same way that NPS might be for some businesses. The challenge with that is that's fine to know, but it's not particularly actionable. So what we've also done is developed a measure that allows people to take action on things that drive that. And to do that, we've created a measure that we can act on at a customer level, an attribute for each customer, which we've called extended customer revenue. This is pretty easy conceptually to understand, but let's start from this question. Like, how well do you know your customers? I'm looking for the first person to contradict. My perspective is most businesses in the world, when they think about who their best customers are, what they think about is the credit card in this person's hand. They think about spend. That's the only way they look at it. But that's such a poor view of thinking about who your best customers really are. So most people, to the extent that they'll have an LTV model and a segmentation program, the only thing they'll be looking at is how much each individual customer has spent. And what that's missing is the value that's being generated by customers who advocate on your behalf, who go out and tell their friends and their family. And what we've got is a new measure we're calling extended customer revenue, which takes the direct spend by any given customer and adds in the value that they've added to the business through referrals. We call that extended customer revenue. Very, very simple. It's just worth illustrating one concrete example. Bloom & Wild, one of our long-running clients. Here is a customer of Bloom & Wild. For the purposes of this, I'm going to call her Abby and pretend that is her photo. Clearly, I do not know who she really is, but this is a real customer from Bloom & Wild. She spent £84 in her first year at Bloom & Wild over a series of 3 different orders, and that means she's fine. She's fine. They like her, but they're not going to go out of their way to get more people who look like her or treat her like a VIP. Now let's look at the advocacy lens on top of that. Let's look at her extended customer revenue. So here she is, £84, 3 orders. She made 4 introductions over the course of the first 12 months of her experience with Bloom & Wild. And of those 4 referrals that she made, 2 of them became very, very high value customers quite quickly. So a different lens on her is not that she's worth £80, but that she's worth over £1,500 to Bloom & Wild, more than 18 times as much. And this is what we've chosen to measure as the extended customer revenue that we would attach to Abby. But the network doesn't actually stop there. There were more referrals made off the back of that, delivering a total network contribution of over £5,000 worth of revenue for the business. So, interesting story about Abby, if that was her name. I have no idea if that was her name. Interesting story about Abby. She didn't come back after a year. She made 3 purchases, she made 4 referrals, and she never came back. Don't know why, but what if Bloom & Wild had sent her a bunch of flowers after 10 months to say thank you for being amazing? They could easily afforded it. Look at the value she's contributing to the organisation. But they didn't have this perspective that would allow them to make that view. And I just want to hammer home how valuable this is. So I just want to lay out from a different client now some data that we've pulled together. So this is, for this client, e-commerce business, for a customer that they acquire, on average in their first year they spend about £160. For customers who they acquire and who then go on to refer, their extended customer revenue that we attribute on average to those customers is over £400, more than 2.5 times as much. But what we can actually do is we can identify different segments of customers who have this extended customer revenue. We actually bracket them into high, medium and low cohorts. And the value of customers in the high cohort starts at £1,500 worth of contribution to the organisation. And so you can see that's more than 10 times the value of a customer that hasn't gone on and done that advocacy. And if we write that across the customer base, then whilst the proportion of customers in the customer base that are doing this referring and generating this value is relatively small, in the order of 10% for this particular business, they're contributing 40% of the value to the organisation as a result of their activity. So hopefully you can see why a focus on generating this kind of behaviour has the potential to pay off substantial outcomes in the long term in terms of driving better LTV, better CAC, and better overall business economics. Okay, so now you're persuaded that this is the right way to look at the world. How do you do it? We've put together a maturity curve or an adoption plan, whatever you want to call it, to help businesses make their steps through this journey. And we've laid out a huge library of individual tactics that people can pursue from beginning to end of this journey. It starts, as you would expect, with getting a refer a friend scheme up and running and starting to capture this data that I've been talking about that's so helpful. But there's plenty more to come after that. I just want to highlight a couple of specific individual tactics that you won't be doing today that you could easily be doing if you start taking this activity. So the first one, right at the beginning of the journey, Really simple. Many of you will be doing paid social activities, and the way you'll be seeding a lot of that paid social activities is basically give me more people who look like my current customers. But if you don't take that approach and you say, actually, give me more people who look like my current advocates, you get different outcomes. So we've got the capability now where we can plug the data you're generating through working with Mention Me straight into your campaign management tools on Google and on Meta. And then you do that, turns out, you get significantly better performance. So one client of ours spoke, seeing 10% reduction in the CPA for the campaigns they were running, and they get a significantly higher ROAS. And even better, from my perspective, the customers that they're now bringing in through their paid social campaigns are themselves more likely to become advocates than they were getting before. So they're starting to feed this virtuous circle of getting more and more better quality customers. Really simple first step to take as you start to learn more about who your best customers are. But the other end of the spectrum, like if you're starting to get to a place where your whole business is putting customer love and advocacy first vision about the way they organise the business, well, here's a different way of looking at the world. So as you're launching into new markets, you're launching new products, then why not be looking for advocacy and at the advocates for working out whether or not it's working? So Huel is a company we work with. They do the food replacement, meal replacement kind of service. So one thing they already do is when they're beta testing new products and features, they offer it out to their advocates. It's a kind of ready-made set of beta testers who already like what Huel do and are therefore well placed to give candid feedback on new products. And the other way around of looking at it is, as you launch into a new product or a new market, why not look for the signals of advocacy that you get from the customers that are starting to pick that up as a sign you're off to the right track? So today, if you're doing this, what you'll look at is how much people are spending and all that kind of good stuff, which you still need to keep an eye on. But if you went into a new market, say, with a hypothesis that there were 3 different customer types that were really going to want to pick up this new opportunity, but only one of those customer types turned out to advocate quite highly, that is a very strong signal that you should be paying attention to as you rethink your launch strategy. Okay, there you go, some concrete examples of the sorts of things that you might be able to do. And I'm coming to the end of my presentation in a minute. I'll take some questions shortly, but I just want to talk a little bit about where we're taking Mention Me as a platform. So we're going to keep offering referral because that's the heart of this, but we are building more and more data science and data related capabilities on top of it. So for example, turns out we can predict with a good degree of accuracy whether or not any given customer at this moment is likely to want to make a referral and therefore personalise their customer experience accordingly, drive different outcomes. We can build a view of who the big networks are in your customer base, so you can identify the micro-influencers, you can identify the communities of interest, and again, do something different with them, harness their power further. We can predict which customers are coming in through the door today and which customers sit in the customer base are likely to go on and become high-value advocates, so you can nurture them and start to unlock some of that value more quickly. And we can report back to you on the earned growth that your business has, so you can see how sustainable your product growth is. This is a huge area of opportunity for all of you, I think, to start to take advantage of what's possible. I'm just going to finish off with a kind of concrete client example. We've been working with Brand Alley for many years. Michelle from Brand Alley, you'll see videos from her on our website. She does a great job of presenting this. I'm going to do a poor job of presenting this, but that's okay. So Brand Alley, they sell high-end fashion and a sort of membership scheme. They've been on a journey strategically as a business for some time now. They started off with their focus being very much on customer satisfaction and doing everything they could to drive customer satisfaction. And then over time, that's moved towards encouraging customer loyalty. And now they've set their goal as being all about brand advocacy. And we've been working with them for a while. First year we worked with them. They got reasonable performance on the referral program, delivering over £1 million worth of revenue to what they were doing. They've grown fairly substantially, more than threefold in the time since we started, but the performance of referral has outstripped that quite significantly. And the customers they're acquiring through the referral scheme are of higher quality. And just to hammer that point home, they're getting better quality customers throughout this focus. So the value of the customers they're bringing in through referral program is 4.5 times bigger than the ones they get through other channels. They tend to spend more themselves. They tend to spend more and spend more often, and they also go on and introduce more other customers as well. There you go. Hopefully now you are inspired to change the way you think about who your best customers are. I would love to talk to you after the break if you're interested in learning more. Obviously, we've got a stand out there, and now I think it's time for some questions.
Question time, Simon. Thank you very much. Very insightful presentation. So let's have a look. Anonymous here, question. As the entire downstream network is allocated to the next extended customer revenue, doesn't that lead to double and triple counting?
Yes, it absolutely does. I'm not going to pretend to you it's additional revenue, but it is a way that you can identify which customers are contributing the most to the organisation. And so the way we choose to define extended customer revenue today stops at the first line of referrals. So we don't count second, third, fourth order networks. That's how we've chosen to define it. But even whilst it is a bit of a stretch to say that that person is worth exactly £1,500 because that is double counting, what it is doing is showing you the customers that are significantly improving your customer acquisition costs, right? They're out there talking to you on their behalf and they're bringing in customers who are of high value. So it's an incredibly useful comparative measure to determine who's doing the most advocating for you in your customer base.
And what does the influencer marketing falls under? Where it falls under? Is it marketing tactic or strategy?
Yeah, I don't really know. I'm not an influencer marketing specialist, but I will say what this lets you look at is to identify those people they're not the super high volume paid influencers that you're actively courting and using as part of the strategy. They're the ones that level down. They're the ones who have a reasonable size social following and are influential and who like what you do, right? So you can look at a network diagram and you will find in your customer base, there won't be hundreds of them, but there'll be tens of them, a bunch of micro-influencers, people who have found what you do, like what you do, and are prepared to advocate on your behalf. And then you can choose to do something different with them as part of your overall go-to-market playbook. You might choose to reach out to them and thank them and encourage them to do more. You might, as some of our clients do, actually send them special rewards, so encourage them to post more and get more earned media and acquisition off the back of that.
A very interesting question here. How can this be applied to B2B services, given the long sales cycle? How do you see the advocacy?
That's interesting. So we are on dog food on this matter. So the product that we offer does not work for B2B. We haven't designed it to work for B2B, a big scale B2B. But we are obviously, Mention Me itself is a B2B business. And so we actually measure these things ourselves. So what we look at as people come in through our own sales funnel, in the early stages of the sales funnel, is we do some investigation to find out why they've come to us. And if they've come to us, as many do, because they've worked with us in the past and they've moved to a new role and they want to go somewhere else, or because they've had a great conversation with someone in their peer group who's recommended us, then we track that. So we can measure our own earned growth and we can determine how well we're performing. And it allows us to identify, we have to do this manually because our own tool won't do it for us because we're not a B2B tool, but it allows us to identify who are the serial repeat returners who keep doing great work for us and reach out to them and talk to them differently. So it's definitely, the philosophy here is definitely applicable across all spheres.
Great. Actually, we don't have much time for the next question, but Simon is around, so if you want to answer some of these questions or ask later on, please reach out to Simon. Thank you very much, Simon. Very insightful.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.